Well, distinguished guests, too numerous to mention, ladies and gentlemen, friends, good evening. Thank you for having me here. I'd like to begin by congratulating the National Defense University Foundation for deciding to grant this year's American Patriot Award, and rather surprised, given that it's an Irishman who's receiving the award, and knowing that Kim Philby once worked in my embassy. Now, I don't need to remind this audience that intelligence work hasn't always had a good name. Back in 1929, Secretary of State Henry Stimson scrapped America's first peacetime code-breaking operation, saying, "Gentlemen don't read each other's mail." Earlier still, returning home from the Boer War at the end of the 19th century, a young Anglo-American journalist called Winston Churchill complained that the whole British intelligence service was starved of both money and brains. We're in a much better place now. When I was in London this week, and I just came back this afternoon, I even heard my Foreign Office colleagues note with a hint of bitterness, perhaps they hoped that with the end of the Cold War, the need for intelligence would diminish. Sadly, nothing could be further from the truth. Our old adversaries are security. And then we have the new asymmetrical threats posed by a proliferation of terrorist organizations. This week, the British Home Secretary has been explaining to Parliament why we need, within the appropriate legal frameworks, to collect communications data, and why we need to counter the narrative of the poisonous ideologies spread by organizations like ISIL. And last weekend's Metrojet disaster, killing more than 200 civilians in Sinai in Egypt, was a reminder, if one was needed, of why we need good intelligence. My Prime Minister, David Cameron, said this afternoon that there was a high probability that that Airbus was destroyed by a terrorist bomb. Because we have more tourists in the region than any other country except Russia, we, the Brits, have had to suspend flights to and from Sharm el-Sheikh, while British and Egyptian security experts work together to review local aviation security and assess the risk of further incidents of this kind. Some people here this evening know that if it wasn't for good intelligence work, we would have already had several more attacks on civilian airliners of this kind against American and British as well as other targets. And that is where our ability, Brits and Americans, to work together is so crucial. None of us can guarantee the security of our citizens on our own. And today, I would say that the US and UK agencies work more closely together than at any time in their history. Because they need to, and because heroes like John Brennan and his colleagues at the CIA make it happen. I don't think there's any more deserving recipient possible for tonight's award than John Brennan. In the almost 4 years that I've had the privilege to be the British ambassador here in the United States, I've always found John accessible, whether in that windowless basement in the West Wing where he used to hang out, or the slightly grander office that he now occupies. Always generous with his time, thoughtful with his judgment, indefatigable in his commitment, even when he's hobbling around with a broken hip. So, John, warmest congratulations to you and to your colleagues, and a huge thank you to you all here and around the world for all the work that the CIA does with your British and other partners to help keep us and the values and freedoms that we treasure safe. Thank you and congratulations on this wonderful award this evening.